Hello, welcome to G-Rex Customs. My name is Rex, and today I'm going to be showing you how to build a Salamanders Librarian. The kit you're going to need for this kitbash are Chief Librarian Tigurius, Salamanders Primaris Upgrade Sprue, and the new Stormcast Lord Veritant from the Scaventide Launchbox. I got my Stormcast off of eBay for about $15, but you could probably get yours if you play Stormcast or know someone else who plays Stormcast for cheaper. So starting out here with the Stormcast sprue, the main part we are going to be needing off of here is this one. It's the torch staff that the Stormcast uses. It comes in two parts. So to start with, we're just going to clip these off the sprue just like you would any other part. Be careful here, parts are kind of fiddly. Once we've clipped off all of the parts for that staff, we're going to move on to the parts we need from Tigurius. It's going to be basically the entire model minus the head and his own staff. So we'll just get started on that. Careful again, some of the bits are kind of fiddly, you don't want to break them trying to get them off the sprue. Now, like I was saying, we're not going to need his staff as we are going to be replacing it with the staff from the Stormcast, so we can just leave that on there, use it for a later kit bash. If you wanted to make a not Salamanders Librarian out of Tigurius, you could probably use that staff, just clip out the Ultramarines logo, but in this case we're not going to be needing it, so I'm going to be leaving it on the sprue. Now for the next part of our kit bash, like building any other kit, we're going to work to clean up all of the sprue nubs on our pieces. There are a lot of pieces in this kit. Some of them are kind of delicate, so we're going to have to be careful. Once we've successfully cleaned up all the nubs, we can move on to actually modifying the parts. The first part we're going to be modifying is the right greave, which has a Ultramarine logo on the knee pad. So to get rid of it, we're going to start out with our clippers, taking off as many of the large parts as we can. Remember to be careful. We don't want to damage the knee trim or that little carved out detail that shows where the knee pad is separate from the greave. Once we've gotten all the parts off that we can with the clippers, we'll go in with our X-Acto knife. Again, be careful. These details are kind of small. We don't want to overdo it and take off too much of the pad. And we also don't want to cut ourselves, which I will admit I've done more than a few times. The key is to be careful, to always control the knife, to only take off small amounts at a time. Once we've gotten everything off we can with our knife, we'll move on to our file. Now, just like the other two steps, it's important to be careful. The file is a fine tool, but if you go too hard, you can remove details you didn't want removed or seriously damage the knee pad. I find it helpful to clean up every so often, going back with the X-Acto knife, just scraping it, smoothing it out, making sure it's all flat. Once we're happy with it, we can set that aside and move on to the next part that needs to be modified, the torso. Now, like the greave, we're going to be taking off the Ultramarine logo. We're going to be using our clippers at first, taking out big chunks as much as we can. Then we're going to be going in with the X-Acto knife. We're going to need to be especially careful on this section. We don't want to mess up the rope surrounding it. Once we successfully scraped away the Ultramarines logo and the wings, we can do one little trick to help smooth it out a little more. Sometimes I like to use glue. Me specifically, I use Tamiya plastic glue. Put a little bit onto a flat surface to flatten it out, as it will melt away any of the smaller uneven areas. Once we're done with that, we can finish putting together the main body of our librarian by following the instructions. Next we can move on to the staff. Now, Tigurius' hand is special. Most of the time the hand is its own separate part, but for him it includes the back of the hand but not the fingers. So for the staff, we're going to clip away the Stormcast hand that's attached to it until we're left with just the fingers, remembering to test it against the part we're going to be connecting it to repeatedly. Make sure that it works. I'm just going to make some modifications to Tigurius' hand just to ensure that everything's all good. Again, remember to always check and recheck. You can always take away more material, but you can't add it back on. Well, once we are certain that the hand's going to fit, take some of our Tamiya plastic glue, dab it on there, and attach the hand. Now, this connection is going to be a little finicky, so we're going to want to make sure that it is steady and in place before we move on to the next part. Once we're happy with it, we should be left with something like this. Just the staff attached to Tigurius' arm, ready to go on the torso when the time comes. Now, as we leave it to dry, we can move on to the next part of our kitbash. Now, I'm going to show you this part, but I will say here that later on during the painting process, I realized the banner wasn't really working. Just didn't really flow well with the model. I thought it made it look too much like Tigurius, partially because the banner actually says Tigurius and I didn't notice, but hey, I'm a professional. Anyway, so if you want to include the backpack on your kitbash, what I would do is remove the Ultramarines logo and scrape off the small Ultramarines logo that you can see attached to the banner. Just be careful with it. Very small, delicate piece in amongst a bunch of fine detailing. So, as you can see here, I just go in with my X-Acto knife, get rid of as much as I can, sand it a tiny little bit, not too much because you don't want to damage the book, and just keep repeating that process, sanding and scraping with the hobby knife until you are happy with how it looks. Or, like me, you can just get rid of the banner entirely. I think maybe if I redid it, I'd get rid of the banner entirely and replace it with another one, but hindsight's 20/20. With that done, we can move on to attaching the different details to the torso, starting with the arm, small little bit of Tamiya plastic glue, and slot the arm in place. It's pretty simple, just follow the instructions. Then we go on to the other details. The small little puzzle box he keeps attached to his belt. See, it's giving me a little bit of trouble here. It's kind of a finicky part. Just want to small amounts of glue as to not damage the surrounding detail, and make sure that it is all secured properly in place. And when you're done, it should turn out like this. Next step is to attach his backpack. Like I said, I would later on remove the banner, but it's still here in this case. Just attach a small amount of Tamiya glue to the backpack port and attach it to the back of the model. Remember to give it a bit of time to dry. From there we can attach the other arm. Like the first arm, it's pretty straightforward. Just a small amount of plastic glue. And then slot it into place just like the instructions. Next we can put together his base. I've already got it glued together here. As you've probably noticed, it is missing a part, but me and my infinite wisdom completely missed that when I decided to attach him to his base. Kind of a rookie mistake, but hey, like I said, I'm a professional. And like a professional, I realized that I was completely missing a section of his base. Hurriedly scrambled to put it back on. And you can probably guess it didn't quite fit the way it was supposed to. And I ended up having to take him off his base, fix the rock, and then put him back on. Not the smoothest work I've ever done, but hey, it all turned out okay in the end. Now, to move on to attaching the shoulder pads. For this model, I decided to take Tigurius' right shoulder pad, which just has the Librarius logo, and one of the Salamanders molded shoulder pads from the upgrade sprue, specifically the one with the chain and the small hammer and fang idol on it. I figured that fit as someone of his status as a librarian. Shoulder pads are pretty straightforward. You just attach a small bit of glue and put them in place. They tend to stay on pretty well as long as the arms aren't in too crazy of a position, so you shouldn't really have to worry about them too much. Here I'm just cleaning up, making sure he is fully attached to his base before putting on the head. For this head, I decided to go with the bald screaming head from the Salamanders upgrade sprue. I tried a few different heads before I settled on this one. I think this one fully encompasses what I really want for the model the most. It looks really stern, and it works really well with the pose he's in. Now once that's all done, I painted it up, and this is how it turned out. All in all, I'm really happy with this kitbash. Like I said, there's a few things I would change if I could, but I think it works out really well. Thanks for joining me. I hope this was an informative experience and you learned a few things you can use for your own kitbashes in the future. Feel free to copy this model if you want, or use the idea and create something entirely new. Hope you enjoyed the first video here on G-Rex Customs. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And if you're so kind, please share it with your friends. I'm going to be releasing more videos in the future. I've got 4 more Space Marine kitbashes lined up. Should be releasing in the next few weeks. Be on the lookout for them. If you do subscribe, hit that little bell to be notified, and I'll see you next time. This is Rex, signing off.